How's it going, everybody? Handsome Dan here with episode 6 of the Grand Tournament. We got a real spicy game for you today with a lot of twists and turns. If you haven't seen the previous episodes of the tournament, make sure to check out the full playlist, which can be found in the description below. Let's head to the scoreboard before we get started today. Caleb and I are tied for the lead at 2 games apiece, followed by Jelly at 1, and Derek still winless. We'll pick in that order for this game, with Caleb and I blind picking for our 2 decks first, followed by Jelly, and then Derek. Let's take a look at the chosen decks and starting hands. To no one's surprise, Caleb will be giving Ilharg another shot. He has to get a win with the deck eventually, but the more people that catch up to him and wins, the less of an immediate threat he becomes. As always, Caleb's goal is to get Ilharg out as soon as possible and knock off any threatening players before they can answer him. Caleb will be keeping a starting hand of 2 mountains, an Ancient Tomb, Blast Zone, Arcane Signet, Meteor Golem, and Chaos Warp. After my win with Serolf last game, I'll be breaking out Extus, Oriq Overlord, for the first time, or, the card the deck is really built around, Awaken the Blood Avatar. The goal of this deck is to create a ton of tokens and sacrifice them for value, or to cast Awaken the Blood Avatar as many times as possible. I'll start off with a Command Tower, Raise the Alarm, Monastery Mentor, Silent Clearing, Cruel Celebrant, Swamp, and Needle Verge Pathway. After a series of unsuccessful games with Talrand, Jelly will be switching back to Lord Windgrace. The hope here is to use his utility land suite to create as much early advantage and value as possible. It's a higher powered deck that tries to have an answer for just about everything. Jelly keeps a hand with Soul Ring, Renin 6, Mana Confluence, Command Tower, Thespian Stage, Eternal Witness, and Canyon Slough. Derek is also going to try to switch up the pace to try to get a win on the board. He'll be bringing Jodah, Archmage Eternal, to this game. This is a big mana deck that looks to ramp out, control the board, and then use the ultimate casting cost from Jodah to set up a number of different combo win cons. Derek's starting hand will be a Mission Briefing, Invincible Hymn, Explosive Vegetation, Glacial Fortress, Stomping Ground, Indatha Triome, and Polluted Delta. Caleb wins the pregame die roll, so he'll be going first this time. Caleb starts us off by playing an Ancient Tomb, hitting himself for 2 to cast an Arcane Signet. I'll be playing a Command Tower and then passing. Derek's just going to be playing a tapped Rogran Triumph for his turn and then passing. Jelly will play a Command Tower and then tap it to cast a Soul Ring. Back to Caleb now, who's going to play a Mountain for turn and then tap down, losing 2 life, to cast Neheb, Dreadhorde Champion. For my turn, I'm only going to be able to play a Silent Clearing and then pass. Derek plays a tapped Indatha Triumph for his turn and will be done. At his end step, Jelly's going to cycle a Canyon
Slough. Drop him. Slough or Slough?
I'm pretty sure it's Slough.
Slough!
I don't think it's Slough.
Drop a turn. I thought it was Slough as well. No, it is what I said it is. That's fair.
On Jelly's turn now, he'll play a Mana Confluence, losing a life to tap down and cast Renin 6. He'll use the +1 ability to get back the Canyon Slough from his graveyard. Caleb now has a juicy target for Neheb to swing at, and so after playing a Mountain, he'll attack Renin 6 with Neheb, getting a trigger on damage to discard 2 and make 2 red mana. He'll use that mana and tap down some more, losing 2 life, to cast Ilharg. With his remaining mana, he'll cast a Faithless Looting and then pass. On my turn, I'll play a Battlefield Forge and tap down, losing a life, to play a Mayhem Devil, primarily as a blocker for anything scary that comes out from Ilharg. Derek will go to his turn and play a tapped Stomping Ground, then cast Sensei's Divining Top. At Derek's end step, Jelly will cycle the Canyon Slough again. For Jelly's turn, he'll play a Bloodstained Mire, and then crack it to go get a land. I'll get a Mayhem Devil trigger to shoot Jelly for 1 as well, and he'll find a Bayou from the fetch. He'll then cast his commander, Lord Windgrace, losing another life in the Mana Confluence. With Windgrace out, he'll use the minus ability to get Bloodstained Mire and Canyon Slough back to the battlefield. He'll crack the Bloodstained Mire again, and this time I'll shoot Caleb with the Mayhem Devil. Jelly will get a tapped Stomping Ground and then pass. Caleb will go to his turn now, where he's going to go straight to combat. He'll swing the Heb at Windgrace and Ilharg at me, and on the attack trigger, he'll drop down a Dragon Mage, which is heading over to Jelly. Derek will activate his top in response, but he does nothing else and the damage goes through. Caleb will resolve the Dragon Mage trigger first to make all of us wheel our hands, Then he'll resolve Neheb, discarding 2 to draw 2, and make 2 red mana. He'll just be playing a Flamekin Village, which comes in tapped, and a Mind Stone afterwards. On my turn, I'll play a tapped Nomad Outpost, and then swing Mayhem Devil over at Caleb while his shields are down. After that, I'll tap out, losing a life from the Silent Clearing, and spend 6 life to cast Toxic Deluge to try to slow Caleb down a bit. Derek will be playing a Boseiju on his turn, which comes in tapped, and then he's going to cast Nature's Lore to get a Zagoth Triome. Jelly will now untap, playing a Yavimaya as his land for turn, and using his mana to recast Windgrace. He'll use the minus ability again to get back a Bloodstained Mire and a Windswept Heath to the battlefield, but we'll hold off on cracking them. We're back to Caleb now, who no longer has Ilharg in play. However, he'll play an Inventor's Fair as his land for turn, and then tap out, losing 2 life to cast the Hellkite Courser. Its effect will resolve on ETB, putting Ilharg back on the table with haste. Caleb will use his remaining mana to give the Hellkite Courser haste with the Flamekin Village, and then he'll go to attacks. Caleb will be sending Ilharg at me again, with the Courser going over to Windgrace. Ilharg will drop down the Dragon Mage again, sending it back over to Jelly. Jelly has responses here, and he's going to cast a Crop Rotation to sack a land to get a Maze of Ith to the battlefield instead. Jelly will attempt to maze the Dragon Mage, but Caleb will respond with a Deflecting Swat to change the target to Hellkite Courser instead. We'll go to damage again, and since the Dragon Mage connected, we'll all be wheeling our hands once again. One of the cards Jelly discarded previously was Life from the Loam, and so he'll replace 1 instance of draw with the Dredge effect instead. Now over to me, where I have to change my game plan yet again because of the wheel. I'll cast a Sram's Expertise.
So I make 3 colorless server tokens, and then I can cast a card with CMC 3 or less from my hand without paying mana cost.
That's how Magic Server sounds.
Like cats?
Yes!
This will make me 3 servos and let me cast an Orzhov Signet as a free spell from hand. I'll play a Marsh Flats as my land for turn, and then crack it to get a tapped Savai Triome. Derek is still taking it slow on his side, playing a Flooded Strand, and then casting Embodiment of Spring. At Derek's end step, Jelly will go ahead and crack both of his fetches to get a Blood Crypt and a Sheltered Thicket. Now on Jelly's turn, he's going to drop down a Mox Diamond, pitching a Swamp. He'll then uptick Windgrace, discarding a Badlands to draw 2 cards. Jelly will drop down a Field of the Dead as land for turn, making a zombie on the trigger. Using his untapped mana, Jelly will then cast Green Sun Zenith with X equaling 5 to get Titania, Protector of Argoth, to the battlefield. He'll get back a Bloodstained Mire on the ETB trigger, and then cast the Life from the Loam he dredged earlier to get back Forgotten Cave, Volrath Stronghold, and Thespian Stage to his hand. Now at the start of turn 6, Caleb will start by playing a Wooded Foothills as land for turn. He'll then cast a Dockside Extortionist, making 7 treasures, and then survey the board before casting a Blood Moon. In response, Derek will crack his Flooded Strand to get an island, and Jelly's going to float a green and a black mana. With Blood Moon now in effect, Caleb will put out a Sneak Attack, and then pay a red to activate it and drop down a Combustible Gearhulk, targeting Jelly for the choice of the effect. Jelly chooses to let Caleb draw 3, and then Caleb will sneak out the Dragon Mage again. He'll attempt to move to combat, and Derek will choose to cast Swords to Plowshares on the Dragon Mage to preserve the rest of his hand. Jelly's also going to respond here, casting an Assassin's Trophy on the Blood Moon. Now for his combat, Caleb will swing the Hellkite Courser out at Derek, and the Gearhulk at Jelly. Jelly will block with the zombie, but Derek will take the damage. Back to my turn, where I'll play a Soul Ring, and then cast a Pitiless Plunderer. With it on the board, I'll sack my 3 servos, making 3 treasures, and then cast Awaken the Blood Avatar. In response, Jelly will crack his Bloodstained Mire, getting a Titania trigger, and get a Swamp from the fetch, getting a Field of the Dead trigger. The Awaken will now resolve, so everyone will sack a creature, and I'll create a Blood Avatar token. Going to combat, I'll swing the Blood Avatar at Caleb, causing everyone to lose 3 life. Caleb has no blockers, so he'll take an additional 3. I have no other actions after that, so I'll go ahead and pass. On Derek's turn, he'll play an Exotic Orchard as land for turn, and then use his mana to cast Jodah, Archmage Eternal. At Derek's end step, Jelly will cycle his Forgotten Cave, but Caleb will first respond by sneak attacking out a Duplicant to exile Titania. Once that resolves, he'll sneak attack out a Keldon Firebombers, making everyone sack down to 3 lands. It's time to start rebuilding, but Jelly is in a great position to do so. He'll play an Azusa, allowing him to play 2 more lands per turn. He'll drop down a Thespian Stage as his first land, and then cast a Crucible of Worlds to let him play lands from his graveyard. Jelly's next land will be a Wasteland, which he'll immediately crack to destroy Caleb's Inventor's Fair. He'll get the Field of the Dead back for his third land, then minus on Windgrace to bring back Windswept Heath and Yavimaya to the battlefield, getting 2 zombies. He'll wrap up by casting a Deathrite Shaman and then passing. Back to Caleb, who's going to play a Scroll Rack and pay to activate it. He'll then go to combat and swing his Hellkite at Jelly, but it'll get a bounce back immediately by Maze of Ith. We'll then go to my turn, where I'll have to cast Blood Pact to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. I'll play a Bajuka Bog as my land for turn, targeting Jelly to exile his graveyard. With my remaining mana, I'll cast Elenda, the Dusk Rose. I'll then go to combat, swinging the Blood Avatar at Jelly, who chooses not to block. Over to Derek, who's just going to have to play a Plains as his land and then pass. On his end step, Jelly will crack his Windswept Heath to get a forest and make a zombie. Jelly will now start off his turn by uptaking Windgrace to discard City of Brass and drawing 2 cards. He'll play Tireless Tracker next, and then for his first land play a Volrath Stronghold, missing his Field of the Dead trigger but making a clue. He'll crack the clue to draw a card, triggering the Tireless Tracker to get a counter. Jelly will cast a Faithless Looting after that, and then drop down a Dust Bowl, getting 2 triggers, and play Windswept Heath from his graveyard, getting 2 more triggers. Done with his land drops for now, he'll swing the leftover Titania Elemental over at me and pass. Caleb will spend mana to crack his Mind Stone and draw a card at Jelly's end step. On Caleb's turn, he'll start off by activating the Scroll Rack again, then crack his Wooded Foothills to get a mountain. He'll play a Soul Ring afterwards and cast Thrill of Possibility to try and dig for more cards. Next, he'll play a Hall of the Bandit Lord as his land for turn, and then swing Hellkite Courser over at Jelly, which is promptly going to get Maze of Ith. Back to me, where I'll play a Swamp as my land for turn. I'll cast a Skull Clamp, and then clamp down Elenda to try to get some traction back in this game. I'll get 2 tokens when she dies, as well as a treasure, and draw 2. Still without answers, I'll use Skull Clamp again, making a treasure and drawing 2. I'll have to use Skull Clamp one more time as I'm still unable to find answers. I'll then go to combat, swinging the Blood Avatar at Jelly, who blocks with 3 zombies. 1 will die along with the Blood Avatar, and so I'll get a treasure. I'll finish up my turn afterwards by suspending a Profane Tutor, and then passing. We'll be back to Derek now, who shocks in a Blood Crypt before swinging Jodah over at me. Derek will then cast a Nexus of Fate, allowing him to take another turn. On his second turn, he'll use top before his draw, then shock in a Steam Vents. He'll swing Jodah at me again, and I decide to cast Path to Exile on him to stop myself from taking more damage. Derek will get a tapped island, and then cast a Temporal Manipulation to take another turn. On his third turn, Derek will use top again before draw, and then play out an Overgrown Tomb tapped. He'll let Jelly know that he's trying to help him out, and so Derek's going to cast a Cleansing Nova, naming artifacts and enchantments to be destroyed. Derek will maintain priority and use his top, and Jelly will crack his clues to draw cards, then use Deathrite Shaman to exile Elenda from my graveyard and gain 2 life. Caleb will crack his treasures to float red mana, and I will crack my treasures to cast Call the Coppercoats, paying the Strive cost to make 8 human tokens. With some of the threats on the board now cleared, Derek will pass. Jelly will start off his turn by flashing back Faithless Looting, then uptaking Windgrace to discard a Nurturing Peatland and drawing 2 cards. He'll play Urborg as his first land for turn, getting 2 triggers, then crack a clue. He'll be casting Oracle of Moldiah next to get an additional land drop, then plays Taiga, then Ghost Quarter, and then finally Strip Mine, getting triggers for all 3. Jelly will then go to combat, and because Derek was so gracious to help him, he'll go ahead and swing all of his board that can over to Derek. It'll be 21 damage, which is just enough to kill him, and Derek dies. With Derek gone and Caleb and I both struggling to catch up, we'll see what we can do together to take Jelly out. Unfortunately, it's not much, but Caleb will start off his turn by casting Injury, targeting Jelly's Deathrite Shaman and dealing 2 damage to him. Jelly will then use the Deathrite Shaman to exile Mayhem Devil from my graveyard to gain 2 life and break even on the life loss. Caleb will go to combat after that and throw the Hellkite at Jelly, which unfortunately gets bounced back by Maze of Ith again. At Caleb's end step, Jelly uses his Strip Mine to destroy my command tower. At the beginning of my turn, the Profane Tutor will downtick, and on my main phase, I'll flash back Lingering Souls to make 2 spirits. I'll then cast Awaken the Blood Avatar, sacking 4 tokens to make 4 treasures and another Blood Avatar. I'll play a Vault of Champions after that, then use my remaining mana to cast Awaken the Blood Avatar again. Unfortunately, I don't have enough mana or tokens to cast a third, and so I'll go to combat, swinging both avatars at Jelly. He'll chump both of them, but it's not enough to take him down. That means we'll get back to Jelly's turn, where he'll put down a Baron Moor and then a Blast Zone, getting 2 zombies and 2 clues. He'll then cast Gamble, and will randomly discard a card, hitting Green Sun Zenith. This doesn't seem to be the card that Jelly tutored for, as he'll follow it up by casting a Finale of Devastation, with X equaling 11. Based on the sheer number of creature tokens that Jelly has, neither Caleb nor I have the life nor blockers to deal with this, and so once Jelly swings out, we'll die. This means that Jelly will be the winner of Game 6 of the Grand Tournament. This was a bit of a chaotic game, with a lot of back and forth between Caleb and Jelly, and some collateral damage to both me and Derek. Although life totals across the board ended up pretty low, none of us were able to really threaten Jelly early enough in the game before he was able to set up a wall of tokens and alpha strike all of us down. Lord Windgrace is really the ultimate package for landfall strategies, offering both card advantage, recursion, and ramp, and so even when Caleb nuked all the lands, Jelly was in the best position to rebuild and come away with a win. Caleb had pretty good starting conditions for Ilharg, but the biggest problem was that he never found anything to drop down with Ilharg that mattered, despite a couple of Neheb triggers, 2 Dragon Mages, and some other looting and draw. Were he able to find a big bomb like a Blightsteel Colossus or a Morog, the game would have turned out much different, but instead he got locked out by Jelly's Maze of Ith and was never able to crack through for much more damage afterwards. Derek was the biggest victim of collateral damage from Caleb's attempts to keep himself in the game. Jodah is a slow and expensive deck that requires a bit of setup, but Derek's hands were constantly being disrupted by the Dragon Mage. When Derek was finally ready to make big plays, Caleb blew up our lands with Keldon Firebombers and set Derek even further back. He ultimately had to use his extra turn spells to catch himself back up, which is not where you want to be with a combo deck. Add to that Jelly's betrayal at the end, and Derek will remain winless. As for me, I had too many of my key engine pieces discarded to Dragon Mage, and I seemed to always be one step behind the other decks. I took a lot of damage from all sources, including myself, and took too long to get my tokens out onto the board to start casting Awaken the Blood Avatar. By the time I had a board presence, Jelly was too far ahead and my life total too low for me to make a real comeback. The biggest question for this game was probably whether or not it was correct for Caleb to use Keldon Firebombers when he did. Although this prevented Jelly from untapping with a ton of mana on the following turn, it also came at a time that gave Jelly the first opportunity to rebuild, especially with Windgrace still on the board and a fully stocked graveyard. It also set the rest of the board, including Caleb, back enough to where an answer to Jelly might not have been possible even if anybody had one. However, there's still something to be said for doing whatever it takes to keep the person the most in the lead from taking the game in that moment. Let us know your thoughts in the comments on whether or not you thought that this was the right call. Let's take a look at the scoreboard now, and with that win for Jelly, that gives us a 3-way tie for first with me, Caleb, and Jelly all at 2 wins each. Derek really can't seem to catch a break here, but he still has a bit of time before he falls too far behind. There's still lots of games left, so remember to like and subscribe to get notified when the next episode's up. That's going to be it for this episode, so thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.